Hello, everyone, and welcome to NA Dossier. We're so excited you're here. If you are tuning in live on LinkedIn, it's a great place to be, but you might be tuning in after the fact on either YouTube or Spotify or even Apple Podcasts. So welcome.
On everything.
My name is Laura Silverman. I am the founder of Zero Proof Nation. I'll tell you just a little bit more about what that is in a second. But I'm here with my co-host.
Hi guys, I'm Haylee. I'm the co-founder of Studio Super Cult, and I'm a mindful drinker. Laura,
That's right, and I'm 100% booze free. That's right. So we bring that booze free and mindful drinking perspective to the table. And where are you based, Haylee?
I'm in Denver, Colorado. Where are you?
I am in the Washington D.C. metro area, otherwise known as Maryland.
Nice.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I just have to share this. Thank you, Tawny. Tawny says she's the president of the Laura Silverman fan club right here. I also want to shout out my parents who are watching. Hi, Mama and Papa. And they said they have the Upside Down. They're each drinking the Upside Down.
Sweet.
Tell us a little bit about what Super Cult is. What do you bring to this NA Dossier table? And then you can.
Sure. So Super Cult is a brand and photo studio for CPG brands. We really focus on the brand strategy side of design, telling beautiful, great stories and executing that through identity design as well as package design. So with NA Dossier, I kind of bring in those design questions, those brand story questions, and really get people talking about what makes an NA brand successful and how do we sell those beautiful stories to our community. Hey, Peter.
Hey, Peter.
How about you, Laura? What do you bring to NA Dossier?
That might be my parents. I'm not sure. So first of all, Zero Proof Nation is a global non-alcoholic resource hub, which I've been curating, creating, adding to since 2019, before there was much of an industry to really talk about. Now, here is my dad. Hi, Papa, and Mama. She's also watching. So I've been booze free since 2007, and I am just naturally a consumer of these beverages because I haven't been able to safely drink alcohol ever, really. But I quit in 2007, and so I started Zero Proof Nation as an answer to where do you find beverages, where do you go to drink them in a social space, where can you buy them, and a little bit more about the industry. And just over time, I have become sort of known as a bit of a subject matter expert, walking historian, walking encyclopedia. Michael, fellow brand designer, says hello. And what I bring, I've been a judge at the World Alcohol Free Awards 2 years in a row. I've done some advising and some consulting for a wide variety of people in the NA industry. And I just bring that community and tasting expertise to the show. And so we're just really excited to be back. It's been a while since we've been doing this. And we couldn't have a bigger guest to bring back NA Dossier with a bang, because we have the biggest non-alcoholic beer brand, I think, in the world, certainly in the US. And if you didn't know what that is, it's Athletic Brewing, everyone, okay?
If you accepted the invite and the title, it has athletic.
Yeah, if you did your assignment, you know who you're watching. So as we get started, please feel free to pop your comments, say hi. Definitely pop your questions in the chat so that we can make sure that Bill sees them. He's gotten a little bit of stuff in advance, but a lot of this is going to be winging it and just kind of seeing what happens. So, Haylee, when was the first time you discovered Athletic?
I have no idea, but it was definitely the first good NA beer, not no duels, that I tried because it was just available, right? Yeah. Do you guys remember O'Doul's?
I've never actually had O'Doul's, mostly because I didn't want to. Yeah, I mean, and I remember in my first email or Instagram message to Bill, I was like, what do you suggest for someone who doesn't like beer? Because I was always accustomed to crappy beer in college and wasn't ever a craft drinker. So there's craft NA beer now, which is absolutely fantastic. Everyone drop your favorite Athletic. variety in the comments. We'll pop those up. But yeah, I remember hearing about this like teeny tiny craft brewery out of Connecticut in like 2018 or 2019, and it was not, you couldn't get it for, I mean, I wasn't able to get my hands on it, I think, until 2019, and it was direct to consumer. So the first time I saw it in Whole Foods, I was like, ah!
Yeah, I definitely didn't know about Athletic until it was in the store where I could buy it, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, that was my first interaction for sure, outside of O'Doul's.
I mean, I'm sure it's not that great, but I feel so bad for O'Doul's. They get a lot of shade thrown at them, but you know what? We've got so many amazing options now, and Athletic, honest to God, has really paved the way for craft NA beer. They are the leaders. We love all of our brands, but we are just so grateful that Athletic is here. And we have a LinkedIn user that says the Upside Down is apparently gluten-free too.
I didn't know that.
Oh my gosh, it's going crazy now. So we've got Free Wave. Someone says good morning. Hi, good morning, Jeff. You want to read Andy's comment?
Dark and Gordy, but I would have to break out of my faves based on seasonality because I have so many. Yeah, and there are a lot on the website, and we have some today that I've never even seen. So super excited to chat about these.
Duncan has good taste in Friends. Hi, Duncan. I've been on Duncan's show before. Laura's the best. Go, Laura. My dad loves Upside Down Golden, and there's always Athletic at my parents' house now, which is great. Jeff says he sees Athletics all over. So we've got a very excited crew that may have never had the opportunity to ask Bill some questions in real life, face to face. Neither have we. So we're going to do the first asking, but please pop your comments and questions in the chat. And are we ready to bring Bill on the show, Haylee?
Let's bring Bill on.
Bill, you ready? We're going to find out.
Here we go.
Hey, welcome to the show, Bill. Welcome.
I'm excited to be here. I feel I have to clarify before it gets away from me. Upside Down is crafted to remove gluten below 20 parts per million, not entirely gluten-free, so it depends on people's sensitivities, but allergen claims are very specific.
Okay, so everyone, do your homework. It's not totally gluten-free, but I'm guessing it's like a trace amount of gluten, like there's a trace amount of alcohol. So
yeah, every batch tested below 20 parts per million. Okay. But sorry to start on a very technical regulatory note. I am generally really excited to be here. Cheers.
Yeah.
Thank you. Cheers.
So what are you drinking right now?
So I sent you guys some really fun beers. I myself just cracked a Free Wave. I happened to be drinking it. It's 2:00 in the afternoon. I had a Free Wave with my lunch. So
Haylee, what are you gonna drink? What are you cracking open?
Well, I did try the Tropical Reset already. I love it. So I'll probably start here. But I also have a mango sour nearby. Sorry, I can't. I'm not coordinated with the left and the right on the video. And then I do the Trailblazer right here. So
awesome.
I recently had the Trailblazer. I brought some beers to a friend's 10-year soberversary party. I was the drink bringer. And I brought that, but I've not had the Tropical Reset before, so I'm going to have a little treat, a little indulgence. And I love this sound. Let me not spill it on my laptop. There we go.
Very cool.
Cheers, everyone. Woo!
Cheers. Yeah, so that beer is a fun limited release. I think we've released it 2 or 3 times. It started as like a triple IPA, but it's like a very fruit forward, like reminds you of vacation IPA.
Yes.
I have to get the exact tasting notes before I steer anyone astray.
Yep.
It's
so it's actually almost veers into like a pina colada sour too, despite like the hop build of the beer too. So
would it be considered a hazy, or is it not so much? Like a hazy IPA?
It's somewhere on the line between a hazy and a sour. It's like pretty fun innovation. So yeah, definitely at the same time, like kind of like smooth, tart, and a little bitter. So
and it's got lactose in it, right? So does that make it creamier? And is it also not for people who have, I guess, dairy sensitivities?
I'm not sure about the latter, but yes, to like the mouthfeel and the overall build of it for sure.
So that's the topical reset, everyone. And
yeah, definitely like the hops like really bring a bit of like pineapple, coconut. Yeah. Is that what your tasting notes are as you taste it? I wish I had one in
I
front
should
of me.
probably have it in a glass. So I have these cute little tasting glasses. And one of the things that I've learned as an AFNA beer certified taster, have you heard of the aficionados program,
Yep.
Bill?
Yeah, we helped Megan develop it.
Well, and you did a great job because I have taken so much from that class and applied it to just tasting everything. And I definitely brought that with me to my judging in the UK. Unfortunately, I never got to taste beers. They have apparently beer experts, but you taste with your eyes and your nose before you taste with your mouth. So I mean, you got to look at the color, and there's definitely like there's some haziness to it. You see like the nice carbonation. There's a bit of head retention. I feel like I sound like I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Don't you though?
You
think I
do
do.
clearly.
Oh.
Yeah.
And it's so good. So it's just really tasty. And so at the end of the day, it's if the liquid is good, I don't want to say like it can make up for so much, but the liquid has to be good. But I think with Athletic, you hit every single box is ticked. And so we're gonna check those boxes with you throughout our conversation. We've already got
I'm definitely like our number one e-commerce customer, and the beer you're drinking I meant to have today, and I just like plowed through the whole pack. So I'm just drinking other beers today while we all taste.
Yeah. Well, you have quite a selection to choose from, that's for sure.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we tend to release, I think the last few years we've released over 50 new beers a year plus, I think about 36 new beers a year plus like 20 favorites we've brought back every year on athleticbrewing.com.
There's a lot.
And if you're an app user, there are like certain, that's the, oh God, don't quote me on it. The Trailblazer, what's your app called?
Oh, Track Record.
Track Record. Okay.
Yeah. So it kind of helps people like challenge themselves and keep track of days and stuff if they want that. But yeah, in general, the app is just meant for easy access. You get pop-ups on all the limited releases. It's really easy for like subscription management and stuff too. So
yeah,
I'm in the app as a user a lot myself personally.
Well, that's awesome. Haylee, we've already got some questions blowing up in the chat. Do we want to start with an audience question and then dive into our own? Okay. So Marlene Steiner here says, I'm a Connecticut native looking to start a business in Connecticut. So I'm curious, how has the state been in terms of being supportive and business friendly, especially in the beginning as you were starting up a craft brand, Bill?
The state of Connecticut has been great. They are, it's, I'd say by proximity, Connecticut is like has all the resources of like a huge state because of proximity to New York, and has like so much like venture capital, private equity, family offices, angel investors in the area. But you're dealing with a small state too, who's like super responsive, responds in the same day. For example, the state was really supportive as we brought a innovative concept, like the first non-alcoholic brewery and tap room in the country. We said we want to build this in Connecticut, think it'll be very positive. And we got access to like a really innovative investment tax credit program, which they were able to amend in the same tax year, which like big states can't do stuff like that. And then they've been supportive in our business all along as we build new jobs in Connecticut. They're happy to help us continue to invest in manufacturing. And so overall, a great and super responsive state, I'd say.
Sounds like you might have a future mentee in the chat.
Cool. Yeah, definitely reach out directly. Happy to make a connection with anyone at the state. The CT Innovations group, I'd say, is like the best spot to like reach out to, and they'll point you in the right direction.
Awesome.
Neat. Well, I have a great brand question that I'm eager to ask. Did you always know that your brand, Athletic, was going to be positioned for athletes, or is that something that came along later? I know you're an athlete yourself. You run, right? Is that right?
Yeah, I'm very much a recreational athlete in like anything. I love trail running is probably like one of my favorite things. But you'll never find me on a podium or anything. I'm just out there to be away from my phone, having fun with friends, stuff like that.
Mhm.
Um, I I would get I would say in terms of branding and how our brand shows up in the world, it's really meant to be like an authentic reflection of originally it was myself and like that, and then we've incorporated a lot of teammates' perspectives and our community and how the brand shows up in the world since. But the outdoorsy elements, the athletic element, beer loving, community loving is all kind of from my background. And we had a great creative agency, Fairfolk, out of Boston, who we've been working with since basically a month after I quit my old job in 2017. We launched in mid 2018, but Fairfolk really helped me get like the things I had in my business plan, like everything from triple bottom line to like my lifestyle. I had this like 96-page business plan, and like they heard what I was saying and they helped me bring that to life in the world. And of course, I had like a lot of perspectives and opinions on that personally, but they were really amazing and helpful in like the brand coming to life, I would say, in the world.
Yeah, so you had always meant to be, you were always an athlete, always focused on that. And then craft breweries, that's like the culture here in Denver as well. You know, you go for a long hike and then you go and drink a beer. So that was always
Mhm.
there. They just really took it out of your business plan and brought it to life. I love that.
Yeah, and the word athletic is so as you were talking about before I joined about like the perception of the category and the stigmas around certain brands and stuff, and how hard it was to like be at a social gathering and order a non-alcoholic beverage or like even inquire about what they had on the menu.
Rules.
Um, yeah,
Well, they
and
have.
which I know you guys commented on the quality, like the a secret. I don't know if it's a secret or whatever, but like if you taste a cold old duels in a glass, it's actually not a bad beer. It is just how it makes you feel to hold it and the branding and the marketing.
Yes.
And I wanted to be sure when someone orders an athletic, which was unnamed at the time,
Mhm.
in a bar with colleagues, with friends. I wanted it to not only be of quality that it enhances their experience and they feel like they're not compromising at all, um, but also that it makes them proud and it's positive and aspirational. And so at some point we had to like somewhat pick a lane there. Like you can't be everything for everyone all the time. And like I thought athletic was like a pretty universally known, positive, really recognizable word that could cut through the noise in a loud bar, that we'd have a lot of fun branding around. So it was meant to be like a word that is pretty universally understood and positive, to kind of like drag the category out of the penalty box and cross borders too. I had thought of a lot of like geographic names and different stuff like that. Honestly, naming was like a 2-year process, and like every dinner or anything I went to, I'd like steer the conversation to naming my company.
Like, so what should
And
we name it? They're like,
and
again?
What were some of the early names?
oh, there are so many bad ones and literally hundreds. And well, I did go down like a number of like fairly specific like geographic lanes, and I think the problem with that, like we've seen a lot of that in the craft beer world, is when that brand tries to travel and sell on a different coast or in a different country, like it kind of gets rejected because it doesn't resonate with those places. And so I wanted like a very universal concept that wasn't tied to Connecticut necessarily. So
And you also mentioned in a Paceline article that I recently read, how athletic is about the mindset too. It's not just about like the physical athleticism.
mhm.
It's about like our mindsets. And I loved that. How has that shown up for you?
Yeah, I've always said everybody's an athlete. Like I always considered myself at my old day job like a corporate athlete. Like I had to train, learn, show up every day, perform, and like, you know, in your career, like you're graded on your outputs and your consistency and how you collaborate with others. And all those are like team athletic concepts. And
Mhm.
um everyone has their thing they're athletic in, and it can be so wide ranging. And we see that really resonate in the community. You know, everything from music to chefs to video games, and like it could be literally anything. So
You mentioned community, and Haylee and I both talked about this before we brought you on, but we know that this is one of your brand pillars and one of your core values. What has it been like watching Athletic grow from what was essentially a cult status to a global superstar? Your community is just grown exponentially. That must be wild. Like, what's it like to be in your shoes?
Oh, thank you. Well, I mean, we have a lot of work to even be a US superstar before a global superstar, but we're definitely trying. And
Differently.
but it kind of goes back to like the authentic elements of the brand, and like really just authentically loving what we're doing. And like I love talking about Athletic. I love the community. I love bumping into people in the world. And um I think that shows up in our community, and that like from day one we've had very triple bottom line elements of our business. So we're not just like this like vampire squid of a corporation that comes in and extracts every dollar of profit we can out of the world. We are like, of course, we're a commercial enterprise, but we flow a lot of money back into communities through like our impact program, our environmental programs, great jobs, and everything like that. And then uh, in community and the brand too, like it wasn't like we did a lot of focus groups and had to figure out where people were in the world. We just like got out there in the world and we're talking about Athletic and built that community from day one. And that really showed up at us sampling at races and like meeting people in the world. And it's just because we had such enthusiasm that we wanted to be out there doing run clubs, showing up at races, giving out thousands of beers, talking to people every weekend. And the community really like built on itself that way. People saw something in Athletic that they really liked and wanted to attach to as a brand that they weren't getting from other brands, and it was a hole in their life in some way. And then when people contacted us to do that, like we embraced that and we tried to get them involved. And Derek, who he sits like 15 feet away from me over here, but like he was our fourth employee and or fourth teammate. And me and him, like I was responding to all the emails, phone calls, IMs, and everything that came in. And we were just like, our community is so awesome. Like I'm meeting so many awesome people every day. We've got to figure out a way to include them in the brand. And so we started to do all different things to like really embrace our community, from events to run clubs to like our ambassador program is like 1,500 people across the country. So yeah, really just trying to include people who reach out in to us, like showing that they like the brand, into the future of us, and like really including them and having fun.
Something that stuck out to me was your 12 paid days per year for each employee to spend that day volunteering. That was really cool to see. So like your community goes deep. You know, when you're on the website, you're looking at the values and all the great things you guys are doing. And that makes me want to wear an Athletic logo on my shirt. You know, so few brands I want to wear their logo, but these things that build the brand story, all of the giving back, all the community building makes someone want to wear a logo, which says so much. But I was really impressed by those 12 days of paid, volunteer
Thank
days.
you.
So cool.
Yeah, yesterday we did a big one on the East Coast. Bridgeport is a town a couple towns down that has like miles of beach and coastline that thousands of people go to every day. And we did a big team cleanup at the beaches there before like we really got into summer season and heavy use for the beaches. But we pulled out I don't want to misquote the amount, but it was like literally tons of trash off the beaches yesterday as a team. And that was kind of a big team effort. We do have signups all the time for like 5 people to go do things at once. Anything from like volunteering in food kitchens to trail cleanups, trail building, and depends the level of strenuousness people want on their volunteer days. So
yeah. You mentioned, Haylee, you mentioned logo. I think it'd be fun to kind of dive in a little bit and talk about the design. And there's so much good stuff to talk about with Athletic design. Definitely. So do you want to kick that off?
For sure.
Yeah, I have a question about how the brand has evolved, because a lot of times brands, I was on a call with someone else yesterday and I told them typically brands rebrand 3 times in their lifetime, at least when we're talking about a CPG brand that's older. So I'm curious, where did your like logo design and your brand identity start, down to what it is today, which, we're all familiar. I'm trying to pull it up, with the,
cool.
but everyone
so Yeah, on the logo, Fairfolk, our creative agency, was really instrumental in that. And we also had some really talented family members and investors in the creative design who like gave feedback on those rounds as well. But yeah, Fairfolk really helped it come to design. Our original logo had sun rays around the A also. And that was really meant to be like bright and positive and outdoorsy in the logo. And then the like landscapes and pastels have always been the same on the brand too. I so I will say as like a co-founder and someone who like really helped design, and it was basically like me onto the cans. When it started to get a little feedback from professionals and teammates and stuff about ways we could tweak the packaging, I was initially very resistant, but I'm always open-minded and said, feel free to share anything with me. And the goal was to, originally our branding like really sat in the background. It was so passive. You couldn't read the word athletic. The name of the styles and the flavors. And so it all just was like too small to jump off the page. And we did bring a lot of those in the next iteration, which we launched in summer of 22. So like 4 years into the brand life. It really brought the athletic element out. We put it in big letters on the side of the can also.
I remember that. I remember when that changed.
But you can recognize it from like 10 yards away at least now. And then we were having trouble to fit the big logo with sun rays. We loved the sun rays, but like to get the A and athletic big enough to show up in places, the sun rays were huge. And so we eventually had to let go of the sun rays in most places.
We have a related question from Peter, who says, athletic packaging looks cohesive, intelligent, and is well branded. Do you, as in either of the two of you, think some craft beers and NA brands get lost in the artwork and lose the cohesive branding? And that kind of speaks to a little bit of what you were saying about how the logo was getting lost and the word mark was getting lost.
Someone sent me just like a friend sent me a logo of a craft brewer that was like the landscape was like kind of similar to ours yesterday. And I looked at their lineup and it was like every beer had a totally different concept, it seemed, or like there wasn't like a system. And that was kind of my reply to them. I was like, I think they just coincidentally landed on this for this beer and they're likely moving on the next one. But we did try to have like a really thoughtful system of how we show up on. So even if there are no words on the cans, people might be able to guess that's an athletic beer. But yeah, I agree that CPG shelves are intimidating these days. It's you have to really like have people walking to the shelf looking for your brand rather than hoping they discover and find your brand, like let alone find your shelf in the store, but your brand on that shelf. Like some of these shelves are incredibly noisy. And I think the craft beer world is a perfect example of that. It's a lot of non-systemic, very noisy branding, but also as great as these companies are and as good as the branding is sometimes, a lot of them aren't doing any marketing. So there's no one coming in looking for it for the first time. They have to like really spend time to like discover that brand on the shelf.
That's a great lead into this question from Michael. Haylee, do you want to read that?
How do you prioritize which sales channels to focus on in the early days?
I'd personally recommend as local as you can and whatever you can support. So there's always this temptation to go big, go fast, and hit all the big banners. But we have had a lot of grocers or any channel want to launch us faster and farther than we have. And if we don't feel like we have the resources to actually be walking into their store fairly frequently, we don't go there yet. And so that was, I launched with Whole Foods in Connecticut. It was like they have 7 stores. That was like a perfect number of stores that I could visit. Plus, we probably had 300 other accounts we onboarded pretty quickly in Connecticut. And I could hit a high percentage of those on a monthly basis around launch personally and make sure it was going well, talk to the owners, get feedback. So I think differs for every brand. I'd say as much as you can start in the independent channel and on a very small scale. So like independent meaning non-chain, so like not your big banners, is probably best because you want to learn your lessons and how your supply chain works on like as small a scale as possible. And then I know everyone wants to go fast, but like time can be such a good friend also.
Speaking of independent, are you a fan of the non-alcoholic bottle shops that are popping up throughout the country and the world?
Absolutely, yeah. It's such an exciting landscape, and it's such a place of discovery and like curation and knowledgeable people, and yeah, even all the way to London with Club Soda, and then yeah, throughout New York, LA, and pretty much every major city has a great So it's
And
been
everywhere
amazing.
has you, just about, I mean, everywhere, which is fantastic to see.
And I shop and try to support the whole category personally. Like I have all sorts of favorites across every vertical
Please
from
tell us some of your favorites. Someone asked in the chat, Tani asked, and it was one of my questions that I had on my phone. What are you drinking when you're not drinking Athletic?
Oh man, such politics. I'll try to be as like diplomatic as possible. I full disclosure, I'm very good friends with David Crouch, who's the founder of Ritual, and I think they're incredibly thoughtful, and they've done such a good job curating menus at bars and restaurants and introducing the category. Gia is a really fun and unique brand. I think they've have like their own totally unique brand style, which is like it's like own unique packaging and style and liquids and brand imagery. So
that was our first episode, by the way.
Yeah, have a lot of respect for what Melanie and the team have done. I love Pathfinder is a very different beverage. I very often find myself putting like Pathfinder with like a little water on ice is like such a fun and different beverage. I've been getting really into non-alcoholic wines. Like I'd always been trying the category and loving them. But yeah, non-alcoholic wines are getting better and better, and like you can definitely find great ones at the different bottle shops or Zero Proof Better Roads types online shops. And then yeah, I don't want to like name too many names because it leaves out people who are doing great stuff. Like I think there's like such fun discovery from like different botanical things and things that like fall between categories too. And so many great canned cocktails now too. So yeah.
Do you drink any other NA beer though? Are you allowed to say?
Yeah, I mean, if you go back 10 years, I had the idea for Athletic in 2014, and if in those days, if you walked into a bar or restaurant, you were just not getting anything anywhere on the menu that was exciting. And Seedlip was launching around then and starting to like some bars had decent programs with adult cocktails, but beer was just so bleak. And whenever I go into a place that has something that's not athletic, I try to remind myself of what that was. And non-alcoholic beer is still only like 1.5% of beer across the country. And it is unquestionably going to 20% and above on a long enough time horizon. And so it's way too early to be competitive or anything. And so like if there's a Heineken there, a Guinness there, or another non-alcoholic craft brand, like I usually like thank the staff and say, I'm so glad you guys are like evolving your menu. And a lot of times I'll say you should have 3 non-alcoholic beers of all different styles on there because not everyone likes a lager or an IPA. A lot of people like a stout or a Mexican lager or whatever. And so at any bar or restaurant that has 20 taps or beers, like there should be 3 to 5 non-alcoholic beers these days.
Absolutely. There's an interesting question that came in before, but it feels like it's time to ask you. Andy Kurtz asks, why do so many NA breweries focus on IPAs? Is it an easier style to start with, or is it just super popular?
So I think partly because IPAs are, I think, something like 55% of all craft beer. So it's like, it's a big pond. And, in terms of convincing alcoholic craft beer drinkers to drink non-alcoholic beer, it's like pretty friendly waters. Plus, I know myself personally, like I stopped drinking in 2013, and the IPA revolution like just went into high gear, seemingly when I stopped drinking. And I had such FOMO for like IPAs of all kinds. So I like that is partly driving why Athletic probably has made 100 IPAs also. But I think there is an element too of, everyone else everywhere, every non-alcoholic craft brewer is in a different part of their quality journey. And, lagers and golden ales and less flavored, more classic styles have a lot less to hide behind. And like a big, hoppy, juicy IPA can offer some things to hide behind on a quality perspective, but not necessarily easier to brew. Like, depending on what technology people are using, it can be very difficult to make a good IPA.
Sorry, I just completely blanked out, but I was going to ask you, I know that John is one of your masterminds, and of course you've got like a whole team of brewers, but how much say do you have still or at all in terms of like the varietals that you put out? And then I'm going to turn it over to
And this is John behind me here brewing on Gatorade jug. That's how we got started. Oh, he's not really there. It's just a picture on the wall.
Just kidding. Wow, it looked like it was
It does look like a window. That's funny. But I know so often I'm here talking as if I'm the whole company. I am like literally the master of nothing, and we have such talented teammates throughout the whole company. And our brewers are exactly that. We do take a lot of input from our community inbound on what we make, and like we love it when our community challenges us to make something. So anyway, you want to come into the company and ask that, but like email, Instagram, whatever. Also, our brewing team too, like incorporates a lot of feedback from our team and stuff. I'm trying to think of a good collaboration example. Here, Right Pursuit, that was kind of an idea we collaborated on with Chef David Chang. So he was very involved with John on that one. Fancy Like is Walker Hayes, the music star.
Your chief fancy officer, CFO.
Yeah, so
I'll admit I don't know. I guess he's a country star. I'm not really into that, but I think that's a super cool way to bring like a partner in.
Yeah, his music is super relaxing and positive and wholesome if you pull it up on Spotify. But yeah, he was here for a tour last July as we were starting to work together, and him and John started kicking around beer. So like that's how that came together. A fun example is our first ride coffee porter. Richard on our West Coast brewing team, we have these very small brewing systems on both coasts. We have a 3-barrel here and a 7.5 barrel out there. And it's small enough where we can make a lot of different batches of a similar style beer, and we can all taste them all and see what we like. So Richard, for that beer, got 20 different local coffee roasters in San Diego. And we did a big coffee tasting as a team, picked our top 3 coffees, and then they brewed a bunch of coffee porter recipes with those coffees. And we had like a whole sensory lineup to pick which was our favorite porter. And like, so it was a total team collaboration, but like really fun there.
That sounds like a fun thing to do. I want to come to the next one, Bill.
Yeah, and we have stuff at like different levels of like aging or like experimentation going on all over the breweries too. So yeah.
Sweet. Well, let's get another question from the
chat. We've got so many coming in. Thank you all for putting your questions and comments in.
I love Jennifer.
You love Jennifer's? Let's just put Jennifer.
I do. When looking when looking to hire and build out your sales teams, do you want people from traditional Bev ALC backgrounds or from non-ALC CPG when you're hiring?
We're big fans of insider and outsider perspectives. So we don't want to like pretend coming into the beer world like and not respect how the industry works. So we do hire a fair amount of people from the beer world, but also outsider perspectives are great too, because then I was that too, and I was like, wait, why why wouldn't we do e-commerce? And like, of course I'm going to pack and ship my beer. Or, you just come up with so many obvious things that the current world is not considering. So yeah, big believer of insider and outsider perspectives.
Cool. Balance.
Yeah.
Key.
And by the way, Bill, you mentioned a little bit about packing and shipping. Do you think that essentially what happened during the pandemic and how so much had to be like DTC for so many brands, do you think that was a key way of building some of your community in the earlier days?
Potentially. Yeah. So right from 2018, when we started on D2C, the world was lager if you wanted non-alcoholic beer, and all of a sudden you had Athletic making a range of craft beers, and we started launching a new beer every Monday at 5:00, and people were just like on their mouse ready to click when 5:00 hit, and it started to be like within the first few months, like our beers were selling out in like 30 to 60 seconds when we were launching beers on Monday at 5:00.
I remember that.
Yeah, people were ready to go and like psyched for innovation.
Yeah.
Wow.
Haley, you know how we just talked about sales channels. There's sort of a related one from Derek Brown, who is a master of many things. So sorry if this was already answered, but curious what you think, Bill, about the state of non-alc distribution. It has some similarities to alcohol, but it's also a little more Wild West. True.
Awesome. Hey, Derek, shout out just to everything you're doing in the world. I think it's amazing. I'm a huge admirer, and I have to come visit you. Yeah, in terms of distribution, I would say it's like a series of trade-offs in many ways. I definitely recommend to brands to start as locally as you can to service what you can cover personally, or like visit personally and help support your first distributor. So at scale, like beer distributors are pretty amazing at logistics, inventory, ordering, reorders with retailers. So there's a lot to like in beer distributors, depending on what beverages. On the wine and spirit side, alcoholic wine and spirits distributors, once your brand is of a certain size, can take brands really far. But with each of those, while they do have big logistics, there has to be big brand support to manage those distributors and be locally. Like I would never recommend shipping products to places you don't actually have people in a market, which is tough. And a lot of people don't want to hear that. But there is a lot of optionality in channels. So like if you didn't go with the alcohol system and went with like a food broadliner, like that's great for getting to grocery stores. But then if you have an independent bar or restaurant or a bar chain that wants to order, they won't go there. So it's like there are trade-offs on everything. But yeah, it's a big topic for sure. So it's unfortunately it probably just requires resources and like starting where you are and learning and figuring out what's right for your brand.
We have a lot of questions about Athletic on draft. Can we get into a couple of those? So Kyle Allagood, he's the founder of a small craft beer brand called SIBO, and he asks about the R&D that goes into Athletic on draft. And then just one other question to piggyback. Ben Lockwood's question about the importance of on-premise draft listings to the future of NA and Athletic.
Yeah. So draft it's still a tough sell. We have a lot of bars who love it. But there isn't experience with non-alcoholic beer being a great high velocity on tap option. So like it's going to have to be something like the rest of the category that's earned, proven, and then once there's data, it'll sell. But yeah, we've been through an extensive R&D process. Draft is riskier than cans. With cans, you can tunnel pasteurize. With draft, you cannot. And so, as everyone knows, flash pasteurization's not enough with non-alcoholic beer. And so, it has to be monitored. And the technologies we've worked on with different draft retailers, which, we're not patenting, we're just letting out there for anyone in the industry to use, is to have it so that valves blow out if there is spoilage, re-fermentation, or anything like that. So I think that's a pretty good approach. but still relatively early days, and we're investing a lot in draft.
Haylee, you want to take some of these packaging questions, or at least ask them? This one's a cool one from Richard.
Yeah. How do you balance non-alc messaging on your packaging? Do you feel like the retail organization does a lot of the legwork, giving you some more flexibility to focus on flavor and other design elements?
So it's actually pretty highly regulated, at least in beer. The labels and advertising are regulated by the TTB, and you can't use traditional beer words on packaging like beer, ale, porter, stout, lager, which is restrictive. We wish we could be more descriptive because these are very common words that help consumers get to those, like what's in the can. But yeah, the statement itself, like non-alcoholic beer contains less than 0.5% alcohol by volume, is a mouthful, but all of it's required. So we don't have a ton of flexibility around the non-alcoholic messaging, unfortunately. So, but yeah, generally, yeah, everything below 0.5% kind of deals with these challenges. So,
Haley, Irving's question is also very interesting.
As Athletic continues to grow and to emphasize community through your new ambassador program and athlete sponsorship, how do you see design playing a role in these initiatives? Could you share how the brand's visual identity and product design help in building a stronger community connection?
Yeah, it's a good question. I honestly haven't thought a ton about it. We've always just tried to make the brand welcoming. So, yeah, it's a really good question. We like to be a brand that yeah is welcoming and stands for things, and so it's I think that kind of helps in that. But yeah, I don't have a great answer. This is like a rare.
That's okay.
It's a hard question to answer, even for me. I think that too, the brand is so focused on like on Instagram, people coming together, like it shows community. We're seeing that in the photography, and that really does help lead, those feelings and the programs and all of the community stuff.
And the actual activations at the races. I had this beer after my Spartan sprint a couple years ago, and it was like I felt so seen. These people didn't know who I was, although should they?
Awesome.
But I was like, they did this for me. It was so great because it's very hydrating. That's there's a lot of studies about the benefits of beer post athletic endeavor, but obviously the alcohol is the one part that's like maybe not the greatest part about it. We have a cool flavor question from Nick Michak, and he and Tawny, his wife, Tawny Laura, have a botanical beverage brand called Parentheses. He asks you, what are some unexpected or surprising successes and failures you've had regarding flavor profiles? For instance, were there any releases you thought were excellent that didn't do well, or something you were on the fence about that ended up being a knock out of the park?
That's interesting. There are certain things that have taken longer to catch on than I would expect. I think that's because we're competing with such big competition with something like Athletic Light. Competing in like the macro light beer category is like just up against such dollars, and so that's taken longer for us to get distribution and get awareness, where I thought that was just going to be like a home run. I would say it's admittedly a slower build. We've had really fun things that I'm surprised didn't sell faster. We did this like really fun collaboration with Super Coffee that was like a protein infused coffee beer.
Wow,
and
that's crazy.
Yeah, I think
it was so good.
It was good.
Yes.
Yeah, I think a lot of people had a lot of fun with it, and there was positive feedback, but it did hang around for a while.
Are you bringing back Citrus Cacao IPA, please?
That one was really good too. Yeah, it's we have like regular customer voting things too, which kind of steers that. So we measure how fast things sell out, but then how much people ask for different beers to bring them back for next year's lineup.
We just have some love to share for you. Athletic is my most favorite beer, from Marija, who says, thank you so much for anticipating needs of many people. You helped me transition to my third month with no alcohol. Yay.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it.
Which leads us to this next question. Haylee, do you want to ask Tawny's question?
Sure. How many of your consumers are alcohol-free versus people who still drink? I'm one right here. There's one.
Yeah, we straddle both lines. It's great.
Yeah. So overall, we think it's around 80% still consume alcohol with some frequency. But it kind of brings me to like a bigger point where I've been saying this a lot recently, where I think the word sober is like just so outdated also. Because like there isn't really a word for people who don't drink, who don't consume a lot of other foods. It's just like, I don't like that, you know, and it shouldn't put you in that small a penalty box. And like alcohol at the end of the day is a functional ingredient, and now there are beverages with and without alcohol. And so it's, I'm hoping this like prohibition era word sober starts to go away at some point, and it's just acknowledged that, you know, 50% of adults barely drink any alcohol. And like, but it's also part of our fabric of society, like adult beverages in general. And like, hopefully it's just totally normal to order alcohol or not with any frequency you want, whatever fits your life. But I think like having to declare sober when most people are 99% sober most of their life is like just an outdated concept that I hope just starts to go away.
Interesting. That's an interesting perspective. I mean, some people just kind of hold on to that word if it has applicability for their like past drinking. But it's also one of the reasons, I mean, I am sober, but it's one of the reasons I describe myself on this show as well as being booze free, because it's just a different way of describing, and it doesn't have to. I like how you talk about a penalty box. Like there's some really interesting aspects to that, both like for something like O'Doul's that is in a perpetual penalty box, and words like descriptors. Like,
but yeah, like people don't have to describe themselves as like coffee free, tomato free, like I'm strawberry free. Like it's like I'm not really strawberry free. I love strawberries, but it's like it's just like a weird concept with enough time. Like it should just be like there are so many food and beverage options. Like eat and drink what you want. You know.
It's weird now though, but it wasn't always. There weren't any options for the longest time. You know that, like of anyone, you know that because you started a brand that's become, like I said, a global superstar. But there really weren't that many brands like for a long time. So there was more of a binary kind of language, I think, before, and now we're going in. People are alternators. They're mindful drinkers. They're just not drinking as much alcohol, and some of it's generationally, which we have a question about too. But Haylee, you were about to ask something.
Oh no, I was just going to say, as a mindful drinker, it bothers me as well that we have to label ourselves and determine when we're not drinking. But a lot of friends and other people, they need that from me for some reason. So I'm hoping that dies off. They'll say, "Are you drinking right now?" or "Are you drinking today?" Like they need to know my decision on drinking that day, which I think is odd. So I was just there with you guys. I hope that dies off and people can just freely choose to drink or not to drink or to moderate without having to put a title on their decisions.
Awesome.
Agreed there.
And we get to have that discussion now again, like that there just wasn't that level of like nuance for the longest time. We've got a question from an anonymous LinkedIn user who says, thinking about the NA space, Gen Z is obviously a catalyst for this shift in consumer behavior, but we all recognize that it's not just Gen Z driving the success of NA beers and RTDs. How do you differentiate, or do you differentiate your marketing for Gen Z versus older generations?
I would say I don't think we differentiate our marketing much. It's more almost channel specific. You know, it's I think different generations consume a lot of media on different platforms. You know, whether it's you know, TikTok and YouTube is obviously like very Gen Z heavy, where like plugged in cable TV is very like the older generations you get, the more TV and radio is still relevant. So yeah, it's crazy how many people like just go to YouTube for everything these days. And like I still Yeah, I was with some cousins who were significantly younger a few weeks ago, and like their default when they watch something at night is just to open YouTube on the TV and like search for things they're interested in, and then find content creators who do that, and
Huh.
like whether it's travel shows, culinary, different things. So I just thought that was really interesting, and I think we all just have to be conscious of getting the content onto all different channels to meet people where they are.
Yeah. So more about customizing the channel marketing rather than the actual message itself. And
Yep.
I want to say my friend Kate said, let's take back the word drinking. She says, I drink all day. My beverages just happen to not have alcohol in them. All right.
I love it. Yeah.
We have a couple of questions. This was one of my questions as well, but let a brand owner ask this. Meredith, who owns a brand called Tethos, which is a tea-based wine alternative, which I think is like one of the next years. She says, as a new NA brand, what advice do you have?
Hey, Meredith. Yeah, that's I would say just like be authentic to yourself, and be sure you're like talking to and listening to your community all the time. I think a lot of me and John were really fortunate in that we kind of wore all the hats for so long. And so every inbound and iteration to our company was like feedback we received. People are so quick to hire for everything, I'd say, and have like, customer inbounds go to some software, like sales go to this group of people or an agency. Like a lot of people hire agencies to do a lot of things, and like the feedback just won't get to you. You won't hear it. So I'd say as much as you can absorb and be in constant contact with your community, your customers, your distributors, your retailers, everything is definitely super important.
Makes sense.
I mean, I could go on for days, but I want to be really cognizant of your time, Bill, and all of our amazing community members who tuned in. I know we still have some more questions, but we're getting into an hour, which is longer than we advertised for your time and schedule, Bill.
Cool. Sounds good. Yeah, definitely happy to be helpful with people any way I can. So yeah, my email is just Bill@Athletic Brewing if there's anything I could be helpful with. But yeah, thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you. This was amazing.
Thanks for being on. Yeah.
Really appreciate it.
For sure. Yeah.
Please come back sometime for part 2.
Well, you know where to find me. Cheers.
Cheers.
All right.
Have a great summer, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Have a good one. Bye.
Bye.